Stop spending all that outside of school time preparing for your classes. Give Brisk AI a try. In today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into the great features that Brisk AI has to offer teachers.
And endless possibilities, just a click away to fuel our dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Integrate This EdTech podcast, the go-to digital space for educators and tech enthusiasts. I'm your host, David Berner, along with my co-host, Jeremy Mikla. Together, we are your navigators through the enthralling world of technology and education. As we unpack the most innovative EdTech tools and strategies, we invite you to join us in sculpting dynamic, tech-savvy classrooms. Poised for today's digital learning odyssey, let's plunge into the depths of innovation.
Last week, we demonstrated features of Google Sheets. You can find that video and more on our YouTube page. This week, David and I begin exploring the best uses of Brisk AI for educators. As always, we'd love to hear about any tips that you'd like to share with others, so please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to join our growing community by subscribing, liking our videos, and staying tuned for more tech magic.
Jeremy and I will also be at the TIE conference in South Dakota, April 15th through the 16th. If you're there, be sure to look for us in our Integrate This t-shirts. If you have other events or presentations that you would like us to be aware of, please reach out on our socials. You can find those links in the show description.
All right, so let's jump into learning much more about Brisk here in the time that we have together today. If you are not familiar with Brisk or you don't already have a Brisk account, you can easily get that at briskteaching.com. So head over there. When you're there and after you've created your account, you're going to want to add to Chrome for free. There's a button on the top there where it's going to take you to the Chrome Web Store and have you install the extension for Chrome. Mine says remove because guess what? I already have it. So after you then install it, what you're going to be able to do then is use the little button that it will create for you. So if I open up, let's say, this web page here that I have, and I go up to the top of my screen where all my extensions are, there is the one for Brisk. Hopefully you've pinned it to that extensions bar, and you'll be able to toggle that on to give Brisk access to the site. You'll know that Brisk has access to the site when you see this little circle. It's kind of got like a tealish tinge around it. And that's the Brisk kind of magic button. What would you call that, David? I don't know. But sounds like something.
Yeah, it's the Brisk button. I don't know.
It's the Brisk button. So find the Brisk button, and that's where you're going to be able to dive into all the cool AI features that Brisk has. So I'm going to click that. Now, Brisk knows that I'm on a web page. And that I'm probably on this web page because it has some sort of content that I'm going to be able to use in my classroom. So I'm going to say that this is going to be the content that I'm going to add to create a lesson around. So I'm going to show you here first some of these different options that you have. When I open up that Brisk button, it says create, give feedback, inspect writing, and change level. I'm going to show you the create and change level ones here. The inspect writing is if you are open on a Google Doc, and you'll notice I don't have a Google Doc open, so I can't really inspect the writing on here. And the give feedback feature is one that, David, are you talking about, or are we going to talk about that next time?
So we'll talk about that in part 2, along with presentations and those type of things.
Perfect. So you're joining us here in part 1. That comes a little bit later. So I'm going to start with the create one here. And I've got this article. It's about why do whales make sound? And I want to design a lesson plan around that. So you can see the different curriculum features that are here, and lots of different things that you can choose from, whether it's a quiz, just a resource. Maybe you want to develop some depth of knowledge questions, and you could see the DOK button there. Or maybe you want to do a lesson plan. You'll note that if it has this little ribbon attached to it, those are the premium features. We're going to touch more on some of those in part 2 if you happen to have the premium account. But today you can do this right now for free, is to create a lesson plan based off of this web page. So you notice then that it can give me this box here where I can edit the prompt, and it says, create a lesson plan about this web page. And I want to add, also use content from this other web page that also talks about it. So now I'm kind of blending in a couple of different resources here. And I'm just going over there to grab that URL. I'm going to paste that one into this description also. And then maybe I want to say to make sure to include some collaborative work for the students. Okay. It has a button on here that you can choose to align your lesson to a standard, and you can see that it's broken down by different states, by different content area, grade level, and strands. So maybe here I'm in this 5th grade science one here, and I want to do something about, oh gosh, I don't know. Let's just pick one here. Engaging and arguing from evidence. Sounds like a good science-y type one. And it's for 5th grade, and let's change it from maybe not 50 minutes, but 30, okay? Then when you have that prompt in there the way that you want it, you click on Brisket. Sounds like something we should be smoking on smoker and then having a nice barbecue for. So once you do that, it opens up a Google Doc. And this Google Doc is the place where it's going to generate your lesson plan. So you can see it gives me the grade level, the duration. It even comes up with objectives for the lesson, as well as materials. It gives me an intro to it. Then it goes through different parts that are all on here. And if you total up those minutes, it's probably going to take about 30 or so. So it definitely would be, because it's a Google Doc and because you are your content experts, you're going to go through and you're going to read through this and say, maybe I don't want to do something that particular way, or I don't think it would work with my group of students. But look what, it's an editable Google Doc. So you can do any of those things with this right on this document. So now that it's generated that lesson plan, and it looks pretty good to me the way that I would want to do it, and if not, it's a Google Doc. I can edit it any way I want it to. I'm also able to add things right away. Like one of the things is, if I don't think it did a good job, I could tell it to just redo it all. I can ask it to make more detail or give less detail. I can make it shorter and longer, and I could even translate the lesson plan into a different language. There's also a couple of cool add-on things here that I'm able to do, and it still remembers the content from the websites that I chose. I can actually use it to create a worksheet based upon the content of that lesson. That maybe it's a guided reading that goes along with one of the websites that they were looking at, and it throws in some different activities and those sorts of things. So you can see you can build off of these different things right in that same Google Doc that you have open. So that's just one of the features that you can create here using this Brisk feature or this Brisk button. But there's also other things here in this create that you should definitely take a look at and practice around with them. Maybe you want to create an exemplar of a certain presentation, you're able to do that. Another cool one here is the presentation tool. So I could take and open up a presentation that maybe I would give to the kids, that it uses the content of this web page. And you can even choose kind of the format of what you want your Google Slides to look like. And maybe I want it to be in shapes. You could choose whether it should be with images or without images, as well as how many slides, and choose to Brisk that as well. And just like it opened up a Google Doc for my lesson plan, it's opening up a Google Slides for this particular presentation. And of course, completely editable to make it any way that you want to. It's building that right for me right now. And of course, because it still thinks it's a fifth grade level, you could see that the content that it generates is going to be geared towards that level of student as well. So another cool feature that you're able to use here for free using the Brisk AI tools. And again, when it's done, you could choose to make more slides. You could choose to even make a quiz out of this. So maybe I want to develop a quiz. And now the cool thing here about the quiz, I'm just going to make it 3 questions here, maybe even make it short response. When you ask it to create a quiz, it's going to give you the option to either put the questions in your lesson plan in a Google Doc, or you can add it right to a Google form, so that if you are using Google Forms or Google Classroom to send that quiz out, it's going to do that. So I'm going to try it just as a Google form here. I have to make sure to give access to my Google account. And so here it's creating this new quiz and it drops the questions in there. So again, if I don't like them, I can change them any way that I want to. So that's a cool feature here. There's one more feature that I'm going to share with you here before I kick it back to David here. And that is this feature in here called change level. So what I can do if I choose change level on any web page or article that I'm looking at is I can adjust the Lexiled reading level for what that particular article is. So I found this article. It's telling me this is already at an 8th grade reading level. And if that's the level that I want, I can choose. I wouldn't probably change anything then. But if I'm working with a group of 5th graders, that might be a little advanced for some of them. So I can choose to change the reading level. And when I choose to change the reading level, it again is going to open up another Google Doc for me here. I just love how it integrates so easily with those different Google tools. But the first thing that you should see here is that it contains a link to the original article. So as it builds it out here, I'll go back to the top. And so I can still relate to what that original article is if kids need to refer back to it. It includes an image from that page. And then as you see, it's taken that content and it's broken it down to make it more readable for 5th grade students. Now, this looks kind of long for me, right? So maybe what I want to do then is just say, I want to make this one a little bit shorter. And so now it's going to generate a shorter version of that article for me, still linked to the original article, but it maybe then wouldn't take as much time for students to read through and still be able to get the main ideas. Then you'll also notice that box comes up and it asks if you want to say add a quiz questions or if you want to add any other content that would be added to your Google Doc. So those are some of what I think are some of the most useful tools that any teacher could start using like today.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that makes life easier for teachers for sure. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to show really just focus on 2 things that are also available outside of Jeremy covered a lot with the create section and some of the things to help get you started on whatever you need to create for your classroom. And we'll go over more things in part 2. But what I wanted to show is something that has really caught a lot of teachers' eyes as I've talked with different schools about this tool, is the ability to take a document and look at the revision history of the document. This is a really cool feature. So when you get things, typically, like if you've had students submitted a Word like Google Doc, let's say in Google Classroom, or even if they just shared it to you to your Drive, you have the ability with any document. And in this case, I'm just showing you, this is Jeremy and I, this is one of our scripts.
You got to put it up on the screen, or I got to put it up on the screen.
So in this case, I'm just showing you one of our scripts that we use for our introduction and our outro. But this would apply to any student work that you would come across. One of the reasons that teachers like this feature is that it allows them to see the process of the paper. And so just by having Brisk, and we can start from scratch here, click the button, the Brisk button, and then if you click inspect writing, there is this replay button. And what the replay button does is it will actually pull up a video that has recorded all of the different edits that have taken place within the script. So what's kind of interesting is that, for example, if you have one where all of a sudden one thing is pasted in there instantly, that's going to be a really good tell for you for any plagiarism work. And I was thinking about this more in the context of what Jeremy and I do, because being that we work with AI tools a lot, and we've had chat gpt write things for us. As I'm talking, you can kind of see the variations of edits that go on. And this is just scrolling through. So it's kind of like a video essentially of the different edits. But you can always tell when all of a sudden there is a paste. Even though you have this little tag up here that says how many pastes there were, that's going to be like a giveaway to if this only took 1 minute and it was a massive paste job that was put in there like that. You just saw a huge, let me go back for a second here. So you see where all of a sudden there's like this big section of text that's pasted in. That would have been an instance where Jeremy and I probably got like an edit from ChatGPT and we pasted it into our Google Doc. And this video is showing that process. So it's kind of cool because you have your timestamps up here as the video continues on. It does count how many pastes had taken place in the document, which doesn't always mean that there was cheating or anything, but at the same time, you'll be able to have a tool at your disposal to help you with checking that.
Right, and it can't prove that it was necessarily AI or that it came from you copied and pasted from Wikipedia, but it
Yeah,
just tells a mass chunk came in at one time. And maybe a student did that because it was a quote and they were citing a quote and whatever it was that they were writing, and it was just easier for them to copy and paste that particular quote and they give it proper citation. So I would say, yeah, this gives you some great ideas, but always use your best teacher judgment on whether or not to start accusing kids.
yeah, yeah, and it's really good. I would just look at it more as like a tool, an additional tool that you can use in your grading process. So like if you're getting this turned in, and normally you would just have the digital document, and Google does have their own revision history where you can see things, but this is quite a bit more complex and it's showing you in real time the edits that took place. And again, it does count like how much time was spent on this. And that's why I brought up the example of, like, let's say there's, one paste and the total time that it took is 1 minute and you have one edit. And, that would be kind of your telltale sign that something's not right. So it's very helpful. And I find it interesting just to watch like the editing process. And Jeremy and I have been, we've had been going through our scripts for a while now, several months, and you can see all the different edits that have taken place and the amount of time that we've taken on it. And so that's an interesting aspect of it as well. So here is right here is also to point out is it will mark where the paste took place so that you can always go back. So you can scroll anywhere on this timeline. But you can also click on this and it'll bring you directly to the paste. So that's helpful too for when you want to check and see if it was just copied from a resource. It'll save you a ton of time too, because rather than reading through the paper and then looking at a section and thinking like something maybe doesn't seem right here, just by having Brisk and quickly clicking the inspect writing and replay, you'll see the paste laid out. And so you could just go directly to those and then see. And that's going to save you a lot of time in the grading process. So really cool tool. I've talked to a lot of teachers that really love that this exists now. So So good stuff. I will just briefly mention that there's the detect AI writing on there too. I'm not really. It's always one of those tough things. This is a conversation I feel like we continue to have is that we don't know the accuracy of it, but the fact that they've built it in and hopefully that it will become more accurate, that's somewhat promising. Um, like the reason I wanted to use this example too is that with the AI writing part, well, Jeremy and I both know that we've done had some of our edits made by checking with Chat GPT and having it give us a more concise wording for what we say. Not always, like a lot of times we edit it ourselves, but there definitely has been times. So this is something where, I think we would want to do a little bit more testing and see what that comes up with. But um, it's saying unlikely, and I know that we've at least done some copy and pasting from ChatGPT, so that's somewhat concerning. But still, hopefully, gets better.
And I think it is a great step forward, like you said. But still, I can't say enough. And whenever I talk to teachers too, and the topic of AI detectors comes up, that it's always with a bit of caution, and it's one piece of evidence, right?
Yeah,
It's the conversation starter that you can have with that particular student, to find out by asking them, and engaging in that conversation with them. How did you use AI, for what parts of the process? And, did you take this information and then rework it and make it more your own? But there's so many different possible things that a student could have done with it. To just give them a 0 without really seeing that process all the way through, in my mind, does a disservice. I mean, it's really bad for that kid, and probably will ruin any sort of relationship that you've built with that student over time.
yeah, especially if there's a, a false accusation, and
Yeah,
if they did write it and you have a false positive, that's not going to be fun. So, um, good
and
to
nothing will
not
anger
rely on it.
parents more than that too. So,
Right? Yeah. Yep. I've noticed too, just on that same note, I don't know if mine still says it here. Let's see. These are so I think it maybe showed up when Jeremy was doing his coverage of the create part. But when you generate things, what I did notice is that when Brisk makes something, which I had it make these as well, it'll have a little disclaimer that pops up over the Google Doc at the top, actually talking about that very thing about um, not just fully relying on the AI and making sure that you're still looking things over. So even the companies that make these and they still recognize the fact that we've got to take a look at everything that we produce. So um, okay, so on to the second thing that I wanted to show, and this has to do with YouTube, which is really cool. We've highlighted this before in something like Magic School, where they have like a YouTube video questions that you can make. Uh, any YouTube video that you go to, you can also use the create button that Jeremy was using earlier, and you can generate a variety of different things, the same things that he was doing. Like in this case, I just took this crash course world history video, and I did this a little bit earlier because it took a while to produce. As it kind of lagged a little bit, but you can go within the video here, and I clicked lesson plan, and then I just went with brisket right away, and this is what it gave me for the lesson plan. It just produced the Roman Empire and the fall of the Republic. So, and Jeremy did this as well with the website, same thing. But I think what I wanted to just get across quickly is that you can do this with YouTube videos too. So um and then there's also, with that, you can do things like a resource. So produce this resource for the Roman Republic. And so really you could just play around with that a little bit. And if there's a video that you want to show, then selecting things from the library to create from those. Um, and I'm not sure we could try the presentation one because I know you did that as well, Jeremy, but just generating from a presentation or a presentation from this.
from a YouTube video, that's kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about trying to do that. Wonder, it looks like it's spinning. I wonder if it's working really hard or if it's going to come up and say, we're still learning how to do things.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to see if it pops up here. Okay, so then we have to look and see what the quality of the presentation is. I've noticed that the slides are fairly generic because I think this was the same that you had too.
Yeah, I think you can pick between 3 or 4 different ones. So
Yeah, so that might expand. We might see something that they might grow from that. But you can see it's really cool how it just takes the information from the video and builds out a slide deck
Mm.
for that.
and actually a couple of those images that it added were probably fairly appropriate.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
there was the Romulus and Remus one with the wolf, and then the SPQR. Yeah,
Yep.
as a recovering social studies teacher, I could see like this. I wouldn't be creating from scratch, right? I might be going in and adding my own ways of saying things to it, or
Yeah.
maybe add a couple of other things or take a couple things out that I didn't think were relevant. But yeah, I think it did a good job basing a presentation off of a YouTube video.
Yeah. Yeah. And anything like this, like even Curipod that we've talked about before, not in our videos, but like it just a general conversation. Like whenever they do create the slideshows, they tend to be pretty generic. They tend to be pretty, there's not a ton of depth to them, but that's where then you can kind of come in and you can edit those to however you like, whatever makes the most sense, and adding resources and things. Just like Jeremy showed too, you do have that side menu of options once it's produced with those add-ons. So you can click more slides if you want to add more. And then the vocab list thing is kind of cool too, to be able to generate like vocab from the content that you made in either the presentation or like Jeremy did with the lesson plans and things like that. So the one thing that I really did want to focus on too, though, with the YouTube videos is I want to just show you when you create something is the quiz option. So the quiz option is going to allow you to change a few things. You can put in the standards. Again, that's a paid feature for the premium version. You can change the grade level. So let's say I want to change it to 9th grade. We'll do multiple choice, and let's say we'll just do 5 questions for this one. And then I'm going to hit next. And then this is where it ties in Google Forms. So I can create the quiz using Google Doc. And it's going to be a similar format to what you saw with some of the other things we've shown already. But then if you go to new form on Google Form, you can Brisk it. And it's going to generate that in quiz format as a Google form. And we'll connect this here again. So, and there we go. So we have our quiz, our Roman Empire quiz. Again, everything is editable. You can change things, but it does put it in quiz format here for you. So you can kind of see it's going up in the total points for the 5 because it's pulling in and creating the questions and answers, and then also the answer key as well. So on the back end side. And so there's your 5 questions, and you can always add more questions if you want to after you've created it, or tie in other content, whatever you want to do there. But that's a really cool feature. And what I want to talk about last here is to tie into that. If you go to the Brisk teaching website and the plans, there is a layout for the features and what you get in the free version versus getting it school-wide or district-wide. The one thing that is great is the fact that those forms can be created with the free version. So that's something I would say shouldn't stop anybody from using it for free, and you can really get some of those cool things that we looked at. Also the inspect writing that we went over, and the reading level that Jeremy went over. So
Yeah, cool. And we'll definitely take a look at some of those other features that were on that list in part 2 coming up next week.
thanks for tuning in to the Integrate This EdTech podcast. We hope you have picked up some valuable insights to help you explore Brisk teaching and some of its great features. Special thanks to co-host Jeremy Mikla and all of our viewers for joining this digital exploration. I'm David Berner. Until next time, keep integrating, innovating, and shaping the future of education. Happy teaching.
Also, don't forget to subscribe to our Integrate This YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and X for the latest tutorials and discussions in EdTech. Next week, we're going to continue to explore Brisk teaching and some premium features, including selecting standards, generating rubrics, and providing feedback. So be sure to join us next time. We'll see you then.